The evening light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Donovan estate, casting amber shadows across the polished hardwood floors. Alexander Donovan stood at the edge of his son's bedroom, watching as Oliver's small fingers traced the braille dots on his bedtime story. The boy's face angled slightly upward, always upward, toward a world he'd never seen. 7 years old and born blind. That's what every doctor had said. That's what Alexander had been forced to accept. But tonight, watching his son, something felt wrong. It had felt wrong for 2 years now, ever since Rachel had died. Ever since his wife had walked into the lake behind their Connecticut property and never walked out. "Daddy," Oliver's voice was soft, uncertain. "Are you still there?" "I'm here, buddy." Alexander moved closer, his shoes silent on the thick carpet, just thinking. About Mommy? The question hit like it always did, sharp and unexpected. Alexander sat on the edge of the bed, taking his son's hand. "Yeah, about Mommy. Grandmother says I shouldn't ask about her. She says it makes you sad." Alexander's jaw tightened at the mention of his mother. Patricia Hawthorne Donovan, who had moved into the estate immediately after Rachel's death, claiming Alexander needed help raising a disabled child, who had taken over every aspect of their lives with an iron grip disguised as maternal concern. "You can always talk to me about your mother," Alexander said quietly. "Always." Oliver nodded, his sightless eyes closing. Within minutes, his breathing had evened into sleep. Alexander stood, studying his son's face in the dimming light. Rachel had been convinced something was wrong. In those final weeks before her death, she'd become obsessed with Oliver's condition, insisting the diagnosis didn't make sense, that the doctors were missing something. Alexander had dismissed it as grief. Oliver's blindness had devastated them both. But Rachel had tried to reach him that night. His phone record showed 17 missed calls in the span of 2 hours. He'd been in Tokyo, meeting with investors for his cybersecurity firm, his phone on silent in his hotel room while he slept, 12 time zones away from his desperate wife. By the time he'd seen her messages the next morning, she was already gone. "Mr. Donovan?" A soft voice with a lilting accent broke his thoughts. Carmen Torres stood in the doorway, her hands clasped in front of her crisp white uniform. "Forgive me, Mrs. Hawthorne said you wished to speak with me." Alexander frowned. He hadn't asked to see Carmen. His mother must have invented the summons. "It's fine. How's Oliver been today?" Carmen's expression softened. "He is a beautiful child, so smart, so kind. My Sophia adores him already." Sophia, Carmen's 9-year-old daughter, who had arrived from El Salvador just 3 weeks ago after years of separation. Patricia had opposed hiring a housekeeper with a child, but Alexander had insisted. Something about Carmen's quiet competence during the interview had reminded him of Rachel, that same gentle strength, that same intuition. "I'm glad they're getting along," Alexander said. He moved toward the door, but Carmen didn't step aside. "Mr. Donovan, may I ask you something?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "About Oliver's eyes." Alexander stiffened. "What about them?" "It is only today, in the garden, when the sun came out from behind clouds, I saw him turn his face toward it, like he felt it, more than felt it, like he—" She paused, searching for words. "Like he saw it." "Oliver's been blind since birth," Alexander said. The words automatic after 7 years. Multiple specialists confirmed it. Bilateral optic nerve hypoplasia. There's no light perception. Carmen nodded slowly, but her dark eyes held doubt. "Of course. I apologize. I shouldn't have." "No." Alexander stopped her. "What exactly did you see?" Before Carmen could answer, Patricia's voice rang out from downstairs. "Alexander? Are you up there? We need to discuss Oliver's appointment tomorrow." Carmen's face closed off immediately. "I should go. Excuse me, Mr. Donovan." She slipped past him and disappeared down the hallway. Alexander descended the stairs to find his mother in the sitting room, a glass of wine in her hand, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the late hour. At 60, Patricia Hawthorne Donovan was formidable, a former corporate lawyer who had built a reputation on crushing opponents and never showing weakness. "You're hovering again," Patricia said without looking up from her tablet. "Oliver needs consistency, not your melancholy. He's my son. And he's my grandson, the only family I have left since your father passed." She set down the tablet, her blue eyes so like his own, sharp and assessing. "Speaking of which, I've been reviewing the trust documents. With Oliver's condition, we should consider adjusting the inheritance structure. Make sure the money is properly managed when he comes of age." Alexander's gut twisted. The trust his father had established before his death 5 years ago left everything to Oliver, with Alexander as trustee until the boy turned 25. Patricia had been furious when the will was read. She'd been cut out almost entirely, receiving only a modest monthly allowance. "Oliver's inheritance isn't changing," Alexander said flatly. Patricia's lips thinned. "You're being emotional. That child will never be able to manage. That child is brilliant and capable. His blindness doesn't change that, doesn't it?" Patricia stood, moving closer. "Alexander, be realistic. Oliver will need care his entire life. Specialized care, expensive care. The trust should reflect that reality." The answer is no. Something flickered in his mother's eyes, something cold and calculating. Then she smiled, the expression not reaching her eyes. "Of course, you know best." She picked up her wine. "I'll see you at breakfast. Don't forget Dr. Miller is coming at 10 to check Oliver's medication dosages." After she left, Alexander sank into his father's old leather chair, his mind churning. His father had never trusted Patricia, had barely spoken to her in the years before his death. Alexander had always assumed it was the bitterness of a failing marriage. But now, with Rachel gone and his mother entrenched in his home, he wondered if his father had seen something he'd missed. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. "Tokyo investors confirmed for next week. 3 days, 4 meetings. We need you there." Alexander stared at the message. 3 days away from Oliver, away from the estate. 3 days of Patricia having complete control. He thought of Carmen's observation in the garden, of Rachel's desperate calls that night, of the journal his wife had kept in her final months, which had vanished after her death. Patricia claimed Rachel must have destroyed it during her breakdown. Something was wrong. He could feel it the way sailors feel an approaching storm. Upstairs, in the small room adjacent to the kitchen where Carmen and Sophia had been given quarters, Sophia Torres sat on her narrow bed, her journal open in her lap. She'd been in America for 23 days, and already she'd seen something impossible. Oliver could see. Not fully, not clearly, but she'd watched him this afternoon in the garden when she should have been doing homework. The boy had been sitting on the stone bench, his face tilted upward, and when a bird had swooped low overhead, his eyes had tracked its movement. Just for a second. Just enough. Sophia had seen it, and she thought maybe Oliver didn't even know he could do it. She wrote carefully in her journal, the one her mother had given her when they'd finally reunited after 5 years apart. Oliver, maybe not blind, but why pretend? Who would make a child pretend to be blind? Her mother had told her stories of evil people back in El Salvador, of the corruption and violence they'd fled. But this was America, rich people in big houses. Surely evil didn't live here too. A soft knock on the door made her close the journal quickly. Her mother entered, exhaustion lining her face. Carmen worked from 6 in the morning until 9 at night, keeping the massive estate spotless, preparing meals, managing Oliver's complex schedule of therapies and doctor appointments. "Still awake, mija?" Carmen sat beside her daughter, pulling her close. "Mama, can I ask you something about Oliver?" Carmen tensed slightly. "What about him? Do you think? I mean, the doctors are sure he's blind, right?" Her mother was quiet for a long moment. "Why do you ask?" Sophia wanted to tell her what she'd seen, but something in her mother's careful tone made her hesitate. If she was wrong, if she'd imagined it, she'd sound foolish. Worse, she might get her mother in trouble with the scary grandmother who watched everything with those cold blue eyes. "No reason," Sophia said. "I just wondered." Carmen kissed her forehead. "Sleep now. Tomorrow I'm teaching you how to make Oliver's favorite cookies. He asks about you constantly, you know. I think he's never had a real friend before. After her mother left, Sophia lay awake, thinking. In the morning, she would watch Oliver more carefully. She would be sure before she said anything to anyone, because if Oliver could see, even a little, then someone was lying. And if someone was lying about something this important, what else were they lying about? 3 days later, Alexander's assistant called with car trouble. The Tokyo trip was postponed 48 hours. Alexander found himself with unexpected time, and he spent it watching his mother with Oliver, watching the way Patricia supervised every meal, every medication, every moment of the boy's carefully controlled life. And he watched Carmen and Sophia, who moved through the house like ghosts, cleaning and caring and observing. He caught Sophia staring at Oliver more than once, her young face troubled. On the afternoon of the 4th day, Alexander found Sophia alone in the garden, kneeling by the old rose bushes that Rachel had planted. The girl was digging, her small hands working at the soil with intense focus. "Find something interesting?" Alexander asked, making her jump. Sophia scrambled to her feet, dirt on her knees. "I'm sorry, Mr. Donovan. I wasn't. I was just." "It's okay." He moved closer, looking at the spot where she'd been digging. "What were you looking for?" The girl's eyes darted toward the house, checking the windows. "I found something yesterday. By accident. I was playing hide-and-seek with Oliver. Well, I was hiding, he was counting, and I saw something shiny in the dirt here. Like metal." Alexander's pulse quickened. "Show me." Sophia hesitated, then knelt again, digging carefully. Within moments, her fingers found it a small metal box, tarnished with age and earth. She pulled it free and held it out with shaking hands. Alexander took the box, his heart pounding. It was locked, but the mechanism was old, corroded. He applied pressure and it snapped open. Inside was a journal, Rachel's journal. He recognized her handwriting immediately on the first page. "If you're reading this, I'm probably dead, and it's probably not suicide." His hands shook as he flipped through the pages. Rachel's neat script filled every line, dated entries spanning her final 6 months. Alexander's vision blurred as he read his wife's words. "I know something is wrong with Oliver. The specialist reports don't match what I observe. He responds to visual stimuli in ways a completely blind child shouldn't. Today I caught Patricia whispering to Dr. Miller in the hallway. They stopped when they saw me. I found Oliver's medication in Patricia's bathroom today. Not in his room where it should be. Why would she have it? I checked the label. It's supposed to be vitamin supplements. But when I looked up the drug name online, it's something else entirely. Something that can cause vision problems in children if given in high doses over time. Alexander is in London. I tried to call him, to tell him everything, but he's not answering. I'm scared. I think Patricia knows I've figured it out. She keeps asking me to have tea with her, keeps offering me her special blend that makes me so drowsy. I haven't drunk it in a week and my head is finally clear. I'm going to confront her tomorrow. I'm going to demand the truth about what she's been giving Oliver. I've made copies of everything, the real medication labels, Oliver's true vision test results that I found in her office. Everything. I'm hiding them here in the garden, in my mother's old jewelry box. If something happens to me, someone will find this. Someone will save my son. The entry ended there. The date was 2 years ago, the night before Rachel died. Alexander couldn't breathe. His mother had been poisoning Oliver, slowly blinding him. For what? The trust fund, the inheritance. Mr. Donovan? Sophia's small voice broke through his shock. Is Oliver really blind? Alexander looked at the girl, this brave child who had found what no one else had thought to look for. No, he said, his voice hoarse. I don't think he is. Not completely. I saw him watching a bird, Sophia whispered. He doesn't know he can see. I think the blindness is in his mind now, not his eyes. Alexander's chest tightened. Psychosomatic blindness. Rachel had been right. The drugs had caused real damage initially, but if Patricia had stopped giving them to Oliver after Rachel's death, his vision would have been slowly returning. But Oliver had lived as a blind child for so long, been told he was blind so many times, that his brain had accepted it as truth. "We have to tell someone," Sophia said urgently. "We have to—" "Tell them what?" Patricia's voice cut through the garden like ice. Alexander turned to find his mother standing on the stone path, Dr. Miller beside her. Patricia's face was calm, but her eyes were deadly. "Tell them about the journal," Patricia continued, moving closer. "The one filled with the paranoid delusions of a mentally ill woman, the one that proves Rachel had completely lost touch with reality before she killed herself." "You murdered her," Alexander said, the words catching in his throat. Patricia laughed, the sound sharp. "I did no such thing. Rachel walked into that lake herself. Yes, I'd been giving her sedatives. She was hysterical, making wild accusations about Oliver's treatment. The sedatives were for her own good. If she chose to take them before going for a night swim, well, that was her choice. You poisoned Oliver." "I adjusted his medication to ensure he remained manageable," Patricia corrected. "Do you have any idea how difficult it was, Alexander, watching you waste your father's fortune on this damaged child, knowing that one day all of it would go to a boy who could barely function? I did what needed to be done. I secured your future, our family's future." "Beblinding my son?" "By making sure he'd always need us, by ensuring the trust could be contested, managed properly." Patricia's composure cracked slightly. "Your father cut me out, Alexander, me. After 30 years of marriage, he left me with nothing. Well, I found a way to secure what should have been mine." Dr. Miller shifted uncomfortably. "Patricia, perhaps we should—" "Should what?" Patricia rounded on him. "You're as complicit as I am. You wrote the false reports. You prescribed the medications. You kept your mouth shut for a generous fee." Alexander's mind raced. He had no phone. It was inside the house. Sophia was too small, too vulnerable. If he ran for help, Patricia might hurt her or destroy the evidence. "Mama!" Sophia's scream pierced the air. Carmen appeared around the corner of the house, Oliver in her arms. The boy was convulsing, his small body rigid. "What did you give him?" Carmen cried. "I found him in the kitchen. There was a cup." Patricia's face went white. "No, that wasn't. That cup was for—" "For who?" Alexander lunged toward his son, but Dr. Miller grabbed him. The doctor was stronger than he looked, his grip iron tight. "For the housekeeper," Patricia said slowly. "I made tea for Carmen. The same special blend I gave Rachel. Oliver must have drunk it instead." "Call 911!" Alexander roared, still fighting against Dr. Miller's hold. "I don't think so," Patricia said quietly. She pulled a small pistol from her cardigan pocket. "This has become unfortunate, but fixable. Dr. Miller, get the car. We'll take Oliver to the hospital ourselves. Such a tragedy, the poor blind child, trying to get a drink, accidentally consuming cleaning chemicals that were poorly labeled. A terrible accident." "You're insane," Alexander breathed. "I'm practical." Patricia aimed the gun at Carmen, who clutched the now-still Oliver to her chest. "Put the boy down, carefully." Carmen's eyes met Alexander's across the garden. In them, he saw the same thing he'd seen in Rachel's eyes in those final weeks, fierce, protective love. Carmen began to lower Oliver to the ground, but instead of setting him down, she turned and ran. The shot rang out before Alexander could scream. Carmen stumbled but didn't fall, still holding Oliver, still running toward the house. Sophia bolted after her mother. "You stupid," Patricia started after them, but Alexander finally broke free from Dr. Miller's grip. He tackled his mother to the ground, the gun skittering across the stone. Dr. Miller dove for it, but Alexander was faster, years of tennis and rage giving him speed. He grabbed the weapon and aimed it at both of them. "Don't move, either of you." Inside the house, Carmen collapsed in the front hallway, her blood staining the marble floor. But she managed to pull her phone from her pocket with shaking hands and dial 911 before darkness took her. The next hours were a blur. Police, ambulances, EMTs working on both Carmen and Oliver, while Alexander gave his statement again and again, the journal clutched in his hands. Patricia and Dr. Miller were arrested, led away in handcuffs, while Patricia screamed about ungrateful children and stolen inheritances. At the hospital, Alexander sat beside Oliver's bed, holding his son's small hand. The doctors said the sedatives would wear off, that Oliver would be fine. Carmen was in surgery. The bullet had torn through her shoulder but missed anything vital. She would recover. Sophia sat on the other side of Oliver's bed, her young face solemn. "Will he really be able to see?" she whispered. "The doctors aren't sure," Alexander said honestly. "The drugs your mother found evidence of, they can cause optical nerve damage, but Rachel's notes suggest it wasn't permanent, that Oliver's blindness is partly psychological now. He believes he can't see, so he doesn't." "Then we have to help him believe he can," Sophia said simply. When Oliver woke hours later, disoriented and frightened, Alexander held him close. "It's okay, buddy. You're safe. I'm here. I'm always going to be here now. No more business trips. No more time zones between us." "Daddy?" Oliver's sightless eyes searched the direction of his voice. "Where's grandmother?" "She's gone. She won't be back." "Good." Oliver's voice was small but certain. "I didn't like her tea. It always made my head fuzzy, made everything darker." Alexander's jaw clenched. "The tea is gone too. All of it." Over the next weeks, as Carmen recovered and Patricia awaited trial, Oliver began the long process of learning to see again. Dr. Sarah Winters, the neurologist Alexander hired, explained that the damage had been real but not permanent. The drugs Patricia had been giving him had caused temporary optical inflammation, creating blind spots and blurriness. But once the drugs stopped after Rachel's death, Patricia had discontinued them, not wanting to risk questions from new doctors. Oliver's eyes had slowly healed. His brain learned to interpret the limited visual input as no input, Dr. Winters explained. "It's a protective mechanism, but with therapy, with time, we can teach him to trust his eyes again." The breakthrough came 5 weeks after Patricia's arrest. Oliver was in the garden with Sophia, who had appointed herself his seeing eye person, his constant companion. Alexander watched from the window as Sophia picked up a red ball. "I'm going to throw this," she announced. "Try to catch it. Don't think, just react." She tossed it gently, directly at Oliver's face. The boy's hands came up automatically, closing around the ball. He stood frozen, holding it, his face a mask of confusion. "You caught it," Sophia said softly. "You saw it, and you caught it." I did?" Oliver held the ball up close to his face. Then farther away, his hands shook. "I can see it. It's red. The ball is red. Sophia, I can see it." He began to cry, great heaving sobs that shook his thin frame. Sophia threw her arms around him, crying too. Alexander ran outside, falling to his knees and pulling both children into his embrace. "I can see you," Oliver whispered, his hands touching his father's face as if to confirm what his eyes were telling him. "I can really see you, Daddy. You look like Mommy's pictures. You have her eyes." The trial was mercifully swift. Patricia's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, but the journal, the medical records Carmen had photographed before the confrontation, and Dr. Miller's testimony he'd flipped on Patricia in exchange for a lighter sentence, left no room for doubt. Patricia was convicted of attempted murder, poisoning, and manslaughter in Rachel's death. She received 30 years. Alexander stood with Carmen and the children at Rachel's grave on the anniversary of her death. Oliver's hand was in his, the boy's eyes green like his mother's, clear and bright in the afternoon sun. "I wish she could see you now," Alexander said quietly. "Maybe she can," Carmen offered. Her arm was still in a sling, but she was healing well. She'd refused Alexander's offers of early retirement, saying she had a job to finish helping Oliver and Sophia grow up safe and loved. "Miss Carmen makes good tea," Oliver said. "Not like grandmother's. Hers doesn't make things dark." Sophia squeezed his hand. "Want to go explore the woods? I saw a rabbit there yesterday." Oliver grinned, his entire face lighting up. "Race you!" As the children ran off, Alexander and Carmen stood together in comfortable silence. Over the months, something had shifted between them. something neither had spoken of yet, but it was there, in the way she reached for his hand, in the way he pulled her close. "Rachel would have liked you," Alexander said. "She would have loved how you protected Oliver, how you believed him when everyone else saw only his blindness." "Sophia was the one who found the truth," Carmen demurred. "You raised a daughter brave enough to look for it." He turned to face her. "I want you to know the trust documents have been updated. Oliver's inheritance is protected, but I've also established accounts for you and Sophia. You saved my son's life. You nearly gave your own. I can never repay that, but that's not why I did it," Carmen interrupted gently. "I did it because no child should suffer, no mother should lose her son, and because—" She paused, her dark eyes meeting his. "Because somewhere between the first day and now, you became more than my employer. You became important to me. Both of you." Alexander kissed her forehead, then her lips, soft and tentative. When he pulled back, he saw Oliver and Sophia watching from the edge of the woods, both grinning. "They're not subtle," Carmen laughed. "No, but they're right." Alexander took her hand. Rachel's last entry in her journal, the very last line, it said, "If I don't survive this, I hope Alexander finds someone who will love Oliver the way I do, who will love him the way he deserves." "She was wise," Carmen whispered. "She was. And she would want us to be happy, to build something new, not to replace her, but to honor her by living fully, by choosing love instead of fear." They walked back toward the house together, Oliver and Sophia racing ahead, the boy pointing out birds and flowers and clouds, his voice filled with wonder at a world he was seeing as if for the first time. Behind them, the sun set over Rachel's garden, touching the roses she'd planted, the spot where her truth had waited to be found. And in the fading light, if you believed in such things, you might have seen a woman's figure standing by the lake, smiling at the family moving forward, finally free from the darkness she'd given everything to expose. Truth had its price. But love, in the end, always paid the cost.